I had my bag half zipped when I heard his footsteps. Heavy, intentional. I didn't even have time to turn around before his voice snapped through the room. "Where do you think you're going?" Mark's tone was ice. I froze, my heart thudding in my throat. Slowly I turned, clutching the strap of my duffel bag like it might somehow protect me. His eyes locked onto mine with something primal, and then his fist rose. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He just raised his arm, and for a split second, I was 7 years old again. Helpless, shaking, waiting for something I couldn't stop. But before the fist came down, he paused. His eyes flicked past me, toward the bathroom. Something in them shifted. Confusion, then panic. I followed his gaze, and everything stopped. But before I can tell you who stepped out of that bathroom, I need to go back to a different morning in a different kitchen when the world was still whole. I remember the smell of cinnamon and vanilla, the sound of my mother humming an old lullaby, the sunlight streaming through the gauzy curtains. I was 7, small enough to still sit cross-legged in the kitchen chair. "Julia, breakfast!" she called gently, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek with the back of her hand. There were 2 plates, 2 mugs, and a little bouquet of wildflowers in a mason jar between them. "Why are you so dressed up?" I asked. She wore her best blue dress, lipstick soft and pink, hair in a perfect braid. She smiled. "Because every day with you is a celebration," she said. "And I want you to remember that, okay?" I didn't know it was goodbye. That afternoon, we walked to the park, holding hands tighter than usual. We fed the ducks by the pond. She was quiet, too quiet. When we sat on the bench, she turned to me and asked, "Do you know how much I love you?" "A lot," I said. "And I love you even more." She kissed my forehead. "Whatever happens, remember that. Mama will always be with you, right here." She touched my heart. There were tears in her eyes. "Are you crying?" I asked. "No, sweetheart, just the wind." That night, she read me a story about a princess finding her way home. I fell asleep to the sound of her voice, soft, steady forever. The next morning, she was gone. They said it was her heart. I didn't understand how a heart could just stop. Hearts beat forever, don't they? I kept asking everyone, "Where's Mama?" "She's sick," they said, but no one would look me in the eyes. I believed she would come back. People get sick. They get better. Mama would come home. But a week later, strangers arrived. A woman in a gray suit packed up my things and said I was going somewhere better. A place with other kids. I screamed, clung to the doorframe. "I want Mama." I yelled until my throat burned. The woman looked me in the eyes and said flatly, "Your mother is dead. You need to grow up now." That was the moment I learned. Growing up means being alone. The state facility was cold. Long hallways that smelled like bleach and cheap cafeteria food. Metal bunk beds, painted institutional green. "Yours is by the window," said a stern woman named Mrs. Adler. "Bedding gets changed Wednesdays. Wake up at 7. I didn't speak. I just nodded and clutched the only thing they let me keep, a photo of Mama in a wooden frame. "You should hide that," whispered a girl on the next bed over. "People steal everything here." Her name was Leah. She was 9 and knew all the rules. "Got family?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. She sighed. "That's bad. Kids with nobody don't get taken." I didn't even know being taken was an option. The days blended together. Wake up, eat, school, nap, dinner, lights out. I learned not to cry, to cut candy into 8 pieces so it'd last a week. I told myself Mama was in a hospital somewhere, recovering. She'd come for me. She had to. That lie was the only thing that let me sleep. Then, 6 months later, he came. A tall man in a gray suit, like the ones in courtroom dramas. The director acted like he was royalty. "Julia Spencer," someone called. No one used my full name. It startled me. In the office, he looked at me for a long time. Same gray eyes as mine, same stubborn chin. "Hi, Julia," he said gently. "I'm your father." I stared at him. How? How do you know? He took a deep breath. "After your mother passed, one of her friends contacted me. She said your name was mentioned in the obituary. I took a DNA test. The results came last week, and I signed guardianship papers this morning." My world tilted. My father? Then where had he been? Why hadn't he come for me? Why wasn't he there when Mama died? My voice barely rose above a whisper. "Where were you?" He dropped his gaze. "I didn't know you existed." I stared at him. "She didn't tell me. I wish she had." It was the first lie he ever told me, and it wouldn't be the last. He said he didn't know, that if he had, he would have come, would have fought, would have done anything. But I didn't believe him, not then. Not when the ache of 6 months, without Mama, still lived in my bones. He said his name was Richard Spencer, that he lived in Charleston now, that he had a home, a wife. That Susan, his wife, was excited to meet me. But what about Mama? I asked because, even after death, I still clung to the idea that she might walk through the door any minute. "She'll be looking for me." He knelt down, looking me in the eye. "Julia, your mom won't be coming back." I had heard the word dead before. I just hadn't believed it. When he said it, really said it, something cracked inside me. A soundless breaking. A part of me fell away and never returned. He took me home that same day. The house in Charleston was big, bright, clean, hardwood floors that echoed beneath my sneakers, hallways that smelled like fresh linen and lemon polish. I wanted to like it. I really did. Susan met us at the front door. She was in her early 40s, warm brown eyes, soft voice. She looked like the kind of person who never raised their voice. "You must be Julia," she said, her smile calm and careful. "I've been waiting to meet you." She reached out to shake my hand. I shook it back, stiff and unsure. The house smelled like cookies, not like Mama's house. Clothes, but not quite. "Richard, can you show Julia her room?" she asked. My room was huge, bigger than our entire old apartment. There were soft curtains with flowers, a new bed, a desk, even toys. But no creaking floorboard by the door. No chipped picture frames. No scent of Mama's hand cream. "If you don't like anything, we can change it," Susan said kindly. "This is your home now." "Thank you," I said, but I didn't believe it. Not really. The first few months felt like watching someone else's life from inside a glass jar. I ate at a big table, slept on clean sheets, went to a new school. Susan packed my lunch with little notes that said things like, "You've got this." But my heart didn't get the memo. Richard was polite, nice even, but always distant. He'd ask about school like a teacher does. "How was math?" "Do you need help?" He gave birthday gifts. He drove me to piano lessons. But he didn't read bedtime stories. He didn't ruffle my hair. One night, Susan came into my room while I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling. "He's trying," she said softly. "It's hard for him." "Why?" "Because he missed everything, and he knows it." I didn't answer. Because if he knew what he missed, why wasn't he holding on tighter now? Years passed. Slowly, I stopped asking questions. I learned how to fit into the family, how to smile for pictures, how to say Dad like it didn't sting. I wore nice clothes, got good grades. I was a good daughter. At 18, while cleaning out one of Susan's storage closets, I found the truth. A bundle of letters, tied with ribbon, the handwriting, unmistakably my mother's. My heart pounded as I opened the first one. "Richard, don't look for us. Julia thinks she has no father. Let it stay that way. You made your choice. I'm making mine. But if anything happens to me, please, please take care of our daughter. She doesn't deserve to be punished for our mistakes." The letters were dated, one just a month before Mama died. She had reached out. He had known. I read them again and again, the words like needles. So he did know. She did tell him. And he stayed away anyway. When Susan found me crying, I didn't hide the letters. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because your mother asked us not to," she said gently, "and because some truths are too heavy for a child. But I'm not a child anymore." "No, Julia," she whispered. "You're not. And now you get to decide what to do with the truth." That night, I sat in my bed, looking out at the dark Charleston sky. Somewhere out there, other girls were living simpler stories, with parents who loved each other, with homes built on honesty. Mine was a story about love that couldn't survive pride, about a mother who chose silence, about a father who chose comfort, and about a girl who carried the cost alone. The University of Virginia had a library with tall windows and an old wooden staircase that creaked like it was whispering secrets. I spent most of my free hours there, hidden among the shelves behind a stack of books and a wall I'd built around myself. Other students talked about parties, road trips, internships. I just wanted silence. I always sat at the same table, far left corner by the frosted glass window. No one ever joined me there, until he did. "Excuse me," came a voice one October afternoon. "Do you mind if I sit here? Everything else is full." I looked up, startled. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes, arms full of medical textbooks. "No, go ahead," I said, sliding my books to the side. He nodded and sat down, flipping open a thick volume on human anatomy. I tried not to watch him, but something about the way he quietly read, the way his fingers moved across the page with purpose, it felt safe. After 30 minutes, he glanced up. "I'm Ethan, by the way." "Julia," I replied. He looked at my stack of books. "Early childhood education." I nodded. "Planning to teach?" I hesitated. Maybe. Kids are easier than adults. They don't pretend to care. They either do or they don't. He smiled like he understood. "I'm studying to be a surgeon. Not because I like blood," he added, laughing, "but because I like fixing what's broken." Something about that sentence stayed with me. For weeks after, we met at the same table, same time. We didn't talk much, just shared space, notes, the occasional snack. But the silence between us felt different, like company, not loneliness. One day, while I was scribbling notes, he said softly, "You have beautiful hands." I blinked, confused. "What?" "Your hands," he repeated. "They're steady, precise, like a healer's." I laughed awkwardly. "I'm not a healer." "You are," he said without looking up. "You just don't know it yet." By November, we'd walk through the park together, the leaves crunching under our shoes, the wind biting our cheeks. It was the first time I'd let anyone walk that close to me. On a bench near the water, he asked, "What's your family like?" I tensed. "I live with my dad and his wife. They're good people." "And your mom?" "She died when I was 7. "I'm sorry." "It's okay." I barely remember her face, but I remember her voice. I paused, then added, "I lived in a foster home for a while, before my dad found me." He didn't rush to fill the silence, didn't ask for more, just sat with it. "I don't talk about this stuff," I admitted. "You don't have to," he said, "but when you're ready, I'll listen." I didn't know how much I needed that until then. Someone who didn't demand pieces of me, someone who waited. Winter passed like a whispered prayer. Ethan walked me home from the library every night. He bought me tea from the vending machine, helped me with projects, remembered when I had tests. We still didn't call it love, but it was quiet, growing real. One night in February, while snow fell outside and the world felt hushed, I told him, "My mom died alone." And for years I thought she'd come back. Every time I saw a woman with the same perfume, every time I passed a bakery, he didn't interrupt. He just wrapped his arms around me. Not possessively, not hungrily, just there, steady. "Thank you," I whispered. "For what?" "For not saying stupid things like, 'Everything happens for a reason.'" "Time doesn't heal everything," he murmured. "Sometimes it just teaches us how to live with the ache." That was the moment I knew he saw me. Not the good grades, not the obedient daughter. Me. And I was beginning to believe I could be someone worth loving. He was everything Ethan wasn't. Confident, established, sharp in the way that impressed professors and made other students lean in. His name was Mark Caldwell, and he was one of the youngest adjunct lecturers in the School of Education. He noticed me after a presentation, complimented my poise, my clarity, my presence. He said I had potential, that I just needed someone to bring it out. At first, it was flattering. His attention felt like validation, like finally someone who knew the world saw me and thought I belonged in it. He took me to expensive restaurants, introduced me to his colleagues, called me exceptional and rare. When Ethan wrote to me about the opportunity in Europe, 3 years, prestigious clinics, once-in-a-lifetime experience, I froze. He asked me to come with him, to marry him. I want a life with you, he said. We can build it together. But I was afraid of leaving everything behind, afraid of choosing the unknown. I need time, I told him. He gave me space, weeks, then months. And in that space, Mark filled the silence. He made me feel important, not soft, not damaged, important. The wedding was exactly what people imagined success looked like. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, imported champagne, guests in tailored suits, murmuring how lucky Mark was. Even Susan seemed overwhelmed by it all. In the dressing room before the ceremony, she touched my veil and asked gently, "Are you happy?" I smiled at her through the mirror. "Mark is a good man." "I didn't ask about Mark," she said softly. "I asked about you." I didn't know how to answer that. During our honeymoon, Mark was generous, thoughtful, polished. He talked about buying a condo in a trendy district, about saving for investment properties, about building a future that made sense. Then one night, I asked, half joking, what he'd think if we had a baby sooner than planned. He set down his wine glass. "Why rush into chaos when we're finally on track?" "Chaos." I laughed. "That's what you'd call a baby." He reached across the table, covered my hand with his, smiled tightly. "Julia, I'm just being practical. I love you, but there's a right time for everything." That was the first time I felt something cold coil around my heart. Still, I nodded. I agreed, because that's what good wives do. I started teaching at a local elementary school. Mark advanced in his department. Every photo of us looked perfect, his arm around my waist, my smile practiced to the point of muscle memory. But there were signs, little corrections, subtle jabs. "You're wearing that to the dinner party. Don't speak too much about your upbringing. It makes people uncomfortable. I know you mean well, but let me handle the serious conversations." I told myself he was just trying to help, to protect our image, that it was normal to feel out of place next to a man like him. Then came the first pregnancy. Unexpected, delicate. I was terrified and thrilled all at once. I bought a tiny yellow onesie and hid it in my drawer, imagining the day I'd show him. But when I finally told him, smiling, nervous, hopeful, his face didn't soften. "What the hell were you thinking?" he snapped. I wasn't trying, we talked about this. You're not ready. This wasn't the plan." Tears welled in my eyes. "But it's our baby. It's your mistake." I should have walked away then, should have packed my bag and run. But instead I whispered, "I'm sorry." And he said, "It's too late for sorry. You'll have it. But next time, ask first. Ask for permission." That was the night I realized the man I married didn't love me. He loved control, and I had just handed him everything he needed to tighten the grip. Her name was Emily. She arrived in early spring, wrapped in the softest pink blanket the hospital provided. She had my eyes and a softness in her that made my heart ache. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace, something like joy. I thought maybe, just maybe, Mark would soften too. He didn't. He showed up late, peeked at her through the nursery window, hands in his pockets like a man surveying an investment. She looks fine, he said, then kissed my forehead and left. At home, he became meticulous. Every hour of sleep, every feeding, every cry was a disruption, a fault, a failure on my part. Why is she crying again? He'd snap. She's a baby, Mark. Other mothers get their kids to sleep. Why can't you? I started memorizing the creaks in the hallway so I could rock her without him hearing. I sang lullabies I barely remembered from my own childhood, tears rolling down my cheeks as I whispered, "It's okay, Mama's here." But I wasn't sure how much longer I could say that and mean it. Mark didn't hit me then. Not yet, but the words bruised just the same. You've let yourself go. You used to care about how you looked. Don't become one of those women who blames the baby for being lazy. I stopped looking in mirrors, stopped wearing makeup. I didn't recognize myself anymore. And yet, when he walked in the door, I still smiled, still tried to greet him with warmth, as if love could be coaxed back with enough effort. When I got pregnant with Ben a year later, I didn't tell him for 3 weeks. I was scared, not of his fists, not yet, but of the look. That expression of disgust barely hidden behind his calculated tone. "Again," he said when I finally told him, "are you incapable of tracking your own body?" "He's your son too," I whispered. "No son of mine should be born into a mess." I started apologizing for everything, for being tired, for needing groceries, for the kids crying. "Sorry," I'd say automatically, and he'd reply, "Don't say sorry. Say thank you that I'm still here." It wasn't long before his words weren't enough. The first shove came when I spilled water on the kitchen floor. I slipped, caught myself. He stormed in, saw the mess, and grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises. "Clean it up. You're not a child," he snapped. I said, "I'm sorry." He turned back and pushed me against the counter. My elbow thudded hard into the edge. "That's the problem. You're always sorry. Be better instead." I didn't leave. I told myself it was stress, that things would get better. When Lily was born, our third, I didn't cry in the delivery room. I was too numb, too used to hiding my emotions like contraband. Mark didn't come, said he had a meeting. The nurse asked, "Is Dad on his way?" "He's busy," I said. She gave me a look that said more than words ever could. At home, life became a war zone. Mark refused to help with the kids. "You wanted them," he said. "You raised them." Emily, my oldest, started flinching when the front door opened. Ben hid under the table when Mark's footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lily, too young to understand, would just cry. And me? I became a ghost, a shell, moving through the house like furniture. Until one night, Emily crawled into my bed, wrapped her little arms around my waist, and whispered, "Mommy, I don't like when Daddy's home." That was the moment something cracked again. Not like before, this time it didn't break me. It woke me up, because if my daughter was learning to be afraid, that meant she was learning to be me. It started with a lie, a simple one. I told Mark I was taking the kids to the park, but instead, I drove to my stepmother's house. Susan had always told me I could come to her with anything, but when you live in fear long enough, even kindness starts to feel dangerous. We sat on the porch while the kids played in the yard. The air smelled like roses and summer rain. She poured me tea, smiled like she always did. "You look tired, sweetheart," she said gently. I stared into the steam and said, "Susan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think it's possible for two people to just not be right for each other?" Her eyes flicked to mine, sharper than I expected. "Is something wrong between you and Mark?" I hesitated. My lips moved around everything but the truth. He's just strict. He likes things a certain way. I don't always get it right. She set her teacup down. "Julia, is he hurting you?" "No," I said too quickly. "Not like that. I mean, he didn't want kids so soon. He thinks I let myself go, that I disappoint him." She didn't blink. "Sweetheart, no one needs permission to become a mother. That's not a failure. That's a miracle. I looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time in years, someone looked back and didn't see a woman failing at her life. She saw a mother drowning, but it was too late. Mark found out I had visited them. He came home early, his face a tight mask of fury. "Why were you at your father's?" he asked. "The kids wanted to see them." "Don't lie to me," he said. "You went there to talk about me, didn't you?" "No. I swear, he struck me. Open hand. Across the face." I stumbled back, hit the wall, tasted blood. From down the hallway, I heard Lily cry. Then Ben's small voice, asking if Mommy was okay. Mark turned toward the sound, eyes blazing. "Look what you've done. You scared them." That night, after the kids fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror. My lip was split, my cheek already swelling. My own face looked like a stranger's. And that stranger whispered, "This isn't love. This isn't life." I remembered the number Susan had once written on the back of a grocery receipt. A women's shelter. I had hidden it inside an old cookbook. My hands shook as I pulled it out, dialed. The woman on the other end had a calm voice. "This is the Women's Help Center. Are you safe right now?" "No," I whispered. "My husband, he hurts me. And the kids see it." "We can help," she said. "Do you have somewhere to go?" "No, just my dad's house. But he'll find us." "We'll help you stay hidden," she promised. "How many children?" 3, all under 7. "Then we'll move quickly. Come in the morning." I hung up, cried silently on the bathroom floor. Not out of fear, out of relief. But I wasn't fast enough. Mark came home early from the gym. "Who were you talking to?" he asked from the hallway. "A friend," I said too fast. "What friend?" "Tanya. From college." "You haven't spoken to Tanya in 2 years." He snatched my phone, redialed the last number. A voice answered, calm and steady. "Women's Help Center." "How can we?" He ended the call and looked at me like I was something he'd found crawling in his shoe. "So that's it," he hissed. "You're planning to run?" I backed toward the door. "Mark, please." He blocked the exit, eyes wild, voice low. "You think you'll take my kids? You think I'll just let you go?" He raised his fist, and then the doorbell rang. The doorbell rang again. A long, steady chime that cut through the silence like a flare in the dark. Mark froze, fist still raised midair. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered. The clock read 9:30 p.m. Too late for deliveries. Too early for emergencies. "I don't know," I whispered. My voice trembled so badly it barely sounded like mine. He grabbed my arm, shoved me toward the entryway. "Open it. And if you say one wrong word," he didn't finish the threat. He didn't have to. My hands shook as I reached for the door. My pulse was thudding so loud it blurred the world around me. I looked through the peephole. At first, I thought I was hallucinating, but the voice came, soft and steady, just like I remembered. "Julia, it's me. Please open the door." Ethan. He stood there in a dark coat, older, sharper around the edges, but those eyes still gentle, still sure. Mark's voice hissed from behind me. "Who is it?" "A friend. From college." Mark leaned closer. "Open it. And smile." I turned the lock with shaking fingers. The door creaked open, and Ethan stepped forward into the light. He took one look at my face, split lip, swelling cheek, eyes rimmed in red, and he didn't ask a single question. "Hey, Julia," he said softly. My voice cracked. "Hi." Mark appeared beside me. "And who exactly are you?" he demanded, puffing up his chest. "Ethan Walker," he replied calmly. "Old friend." "Well, Julia's a married woman now. You should probably leave." Ethan didn't flinch. He glanced at me again, then let his eyes settle on Mark with a quiet firmness that made the room feel heavier. "If she asks me to go, I'll go. Otherwise, I'm staying right here." Mark laughed. "You don't get to make decisions in my house." "Then let's not talk in your house." He took a step inside. Not aggressive, just solid. Mark stepped back, barely, but enough for me to notice. In the hallway, Lily had started crying. Ben's voice followed, soft and scared. Emily was trying to hush them. "I need to check on the kids," I said, moving toward their room. Mark caught my wrist. "They can wait." "No," Ethan said, voice like steel. "They can't." Mark turned on him. "What business is this of yours?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He stepped closer to Mark, just one pace, and said, "When it comes to Julia and her children, it's all my business." Mark tried to hold his ground, but something shifted. He saw it too. This wasn't the boy I'd once studied with in libraries. This was a man who'd spent years learning how to protect and repair. "Get out," Mark growled. "Not without her," Ethan said. Mark lunged, swinging his arm, but Ethan caught it, twisted, and shoved him against the wall with a precision that spoke of training, not rage. Mark cursed, struggling. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it," Ethan said calmly. A few days earlier, Mrs. Thompson had stopped me in the hallway. She returned a package that had been delivered to her door by mistake. Her eyes lingered on the faint bruises on my arm. "You okay, hon?" she asked softly. I smiled too quickly. "Just tired." She didn't press. But that night, I heard her linger outside our door longer than usual. Then a voice came from behind. "I'd step carefully if I were you." It was Mrs. Thompson, our neighbor from downstairs. She held up a phone, screen still lit. "I've been recording every scream, every crash, every night. I called the shelter myself. And if this man hadn't shown up tonight, I would have walked through that door." Mark's face drained of color. Ethan let him go, then turned to me. "Get your things. Get the kids. You're not spending one more night here." I didn't move at first. I was still frozen, still stuck in the script of survival. But then I looked at my children, 3 wide-eyed little souls huddled in the doorway, and I finally felt it. This wasn't fear anymore. This was freedom knocking. Later that night, after the kids were finally asleep at the shelter, I asked Ethan, "How did you know to come?" He looked at me for a moment. "Susan called me. She was worried after you stopped answering. She said you might need someone to stand with you." I blinked. "You came all this way just because of that?" He nodded. "No," he said softly. "I came because I should have never let you go in the first place." And this time I was ready to open the door. The drive to the shelter felt like the longest journey of my life, though it took only 20 minutes. Ethan drove with one hand on the wheel, the other gripping mine. He didn't speak much, just gave me the silence I needed, the kind that didn't feel empty but safe. The kids were curled up in the back seat, Emily whispering to Ben, Lily tucked in her arms. None of them cried. They just clung to each other like castaways in a storm. When we pulled up to the shelter, a woman was already waiting at the door. She introduced herself as Maggie. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were sharper than they first appeared. She didn't pity me. She respected me. Inside, the space was quiet, clean, soft with blankets and soft-spoken volunteers. I filled out paperwork with trembling hands while Maggie brought juice boxes to the kids. "You're safe now," she said gently. "No one knows you're here, and no one will unless you tell them." That night, in a small room with bunk beds and dim lights, I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared out the window. Ethan knocked once, then peeked in. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think so." He hesitated, then asked, "Why didn't you call me? All these years." I looked at him, this man who had been my safe place once and somehow still was, because I didn't think I deserved help. Not after I chose wrong. Not after I stayed so long. He stepped inside. "You didn't choose wrong. He fooled you. And staying? That wasn't weakness. That was survival." Tears welled in my eyes. I let it happen. I let the kids see it. He knelt in front of me. And now they'll see this. They'll see their mom choosing better. Choosing freedom. I broke then, but not like before. Not into pieces. I broke open. The first few weeks were chaos wrapped in comfort. Paperwork, legal calls, panic attacks at the sound of a closing door. The shelter's attorney helped me file for a protective order. Custody hearings would take months. Ethan stayed nearby, not hovering, just present. It wasn't instant freedom. It was exhaustion, flashbacks, and late-night doubts. But one morning I realized I had slept. Not just closed my eyes, but truly slept. And I woke up without fear. Lily started sleeping through the night. Ben made a friend. Emily asked Maggie if she could help serve snacks to the younger kids. I began to feel like a mother again. Not just a shield, but a source of warmth. Mark tried to reach out once. He sent an email through a mutual contact. Said he regretted how things ended. Said he missed the kids. I didn't reply. I sent it to the shelter's legal advisor. By the end of the month, I had filed for divorce. Full custody. No visitation without supervision. My father visited. He cried when he saw me. Apologized for not noticing sooner. Susan held my hand and said, "You didn't fail, Julia. You endured. And now you rise." One afternoon, Ethan showed up with a small box. "It's not a ring," he said quickly. "Don't worry." I laughed for the first time in weeks. Inside the box was a silver pendant, a small tree, roots curled beneath the surface. "It's the tree of life," he said, "for strength, for growth, for the life you're building now." I touched the pendant, tears stinging. "Thank you." He smiled. "There's a position open at a private preschool near the hospital. They're looking for someone who knows how to reach kids who've been through things. Someone who understands." "You think I'm that person?" I asked quietly. "I know you are." And for the first time in years, I believed it too. We moved into a small rental house near the school. The kids picked out paint colors for their bedrooms. We planted flowers in the yard. On Saturdays, we made pancakes in our pajamas. On Sundays, we visited the library again. Ethan never asked for anything. But slowly we found our way back. Not to who we were, but to who we had become. Not broken people, but rebuilt ones. Together. And when Emily brought me a drawing one morning of our little house, a tall man, a smiling mom, and 3 happy kids with hearts over their heads, I knew this was home. I wrote the letter late one night, long after the kids had gone to bed and the house had gone still. Rain was tapping gently against the windows, and the air smelled like lavender from the diffuser Ethan bought me last Christmas. He was asleep on the couch, a book resting on his chest, glasses tilted slightly, just like always. I opened my laptop, stared at the blank document, and typed. To the man I once married, I paused. That phrase alone felt like a lifetime. "You once told me I was lucky you stayed, that no one else would want me, that I was too soft, too messy, too ordinary to ever be enough. For years, I believed you. I shrank myself to fit the version of me you preferred. Smaller, quieter, compliant. I walked on eggshells, so often I forgot how solid ground was supposed to feel. But here's what you never realized. Every insult, every bruise, physical or otherwise, wasn't proof of your power. It was proof of your fear. You were afraid of a woman who could still hope, still mother, still laugh, even in your shadow. You didn't break me. You bent me. You twisted my reflection. But you never erased me. And the moment I walked away, I remembered. I remembered the girl who loved books and dreamed of being a teacher. I remembered the mother who sang lullabies even with a broken heart. I remembered the woman who once stood in a hospital hallway and promised her baby she'd always be safe. You tried to convince me I was worthless. But today, I woke up to Lily's giggle, Ben's arms around my waist, Emily's drawing of a brave mommy on the fridge. Today, I walked into a classroom and met 5 children who've lived through storms. Children who looked at me and saw someone who gets it, someone who stayed. And today, a man who never raised his voice, who never asked me to shrink, brought me coffee just the way I like it, and kissed my cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't get to call that luck. You don't get to call this regret. You don't get to come back. I printed the letter, folded it, slid it into an envelope. Then I walked to the fireplace and watched the flame take it. Slow, deliberate, final. I didn't need to send it, because the power was never in the words. It was in writing them, in choosing to let go. Ethan stirred on the couch, blinked awake, and smiled at me with that quiet knowing he always had. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, I just needed to finish something. He reached out his hand. I took it. Outside, the rain had stopped. The moonlight spilled across the floor, silver and soft. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel haunted. I felt free.